In this episode, I'm going to talk about how the expat lifestyle can leave you vulnerable to depression. So, if you're an expat and you're feeling depressed and you want to understand why, then stay tuned.
Wherapy. Therapy wherever, whenever.
Welcome to Coffee with a Therapist. My name is Philip Anderson. I'm a psychotherapist and the founder of a website called Wherapy. Wherapy offers online therapy sessions and online mental health courses. But in this episode of Coffee with a Therapist, I'm going to talk about expats. Expats are people who live and work abroad. Some people turn it into a lifestyle, so they live in one country for a few years and then they move to another country for a few years and so on. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about how the expat lifestyle can leave you vulnerable to depression. So if you're an expat and you're feeling depressed and you want to understand why, then stay tuned. And just as a side note, throughout this podcast, I'm going to name drop 3 different countries. And if you're from any of those 3 countries, you can get a free therapy session with me. All you have to do is go to the website and apply. So, let's begin. This first part is going to be about fear. And expats, especially more established expats, they tend to develop an identity surrounding their lifestyle. That's the case for the children of expats as well. They're called third culture kids. So first, when you move abroad, then you're the foreigner in that country, and then you relate to that country based on your original country, the country that you're born in. And this gives you a way of relating to people using your special identity. Oh, well, Philip, he's the Swedish guy who's living in Hong Kong, or there's that guy living in Singapore, but he's Spanish. So everybody in that country can relate to this foreigner. They see that foreigner as kind of exotic as well. And based on that identity, it gives them, it makes it easier for them to get connections, because they are seen as that bit unique, and then when you're back in your original country, be it during a summer holiday or winter break or whatever, then you relate to your original country, the country that you were born in. You relate to it based on the identity of the country that you live in as an expat. So if you're, let's take the Spanish guy. If you're a Spanish guy living in Singapore, then to begin with, you're this Western foreigner, Spanish person in Singapore. You're unique in that sense, and people kind of want to get a connection with you in that sense. And then when the Spanish person goes back to Spain for a holiday, then he can relate to Spain based on his Singaporean identity. Oh, my tummy is rumbling. Sorry, but so he can relate to Spain through his newly adopted Singaporean identity. And there he can kind of be it critique Spain or critique something, or say, oh, this is not how we do it in Singapore, and the like. And the reason why I'm giving this example, there's my tummy rumbling again, I'm so sorry. The reason why I'm giving this example is that to illustrate that expats, they build their identity as always being the foreigner, yeah? Always being that unique person. Yeah. So the thought of not being an expat anymore can be very scary. Yeah? The thought of just moving back to Spain permanently, if we stick to this example, can be quite scary for this guy, because then he loses his connection to Singapore. He cannot say, well, in Singapore we did this and that, because in Spain he's not clearly Singaporean, and he's just this person, yeah, run-of-the-mill Spanish guy in Spain. Yeah. So as an expat, you have an interest in maintaining the expat identity, yeah? And when the prospect of going back hits you, yeah, when you're hit with that prospect, well, yeah, maybe I can't maintain my I can't stay in this current job, or I have to go back and take care of a family member or the like. The identity is threatened, yeah. So that most often, yeah, expats want to move to another country, a different country, than if they're faced with the prospect, yeah, of leaving. If we stick to this example again, Singapore, then they're more likely to want to move to another country where they're an expat, yeah, where they can maintain this identity. Yeah. And that can also lead them to making the wrong decisions for their career or for their family. But it's all motivated from a fear of losing the identity as an expat. So that fear motivates them into making the wrong decision, and then these wrong decisions, the consequences of these wrong decisions. Now, in some cases, they might not be wrong decisions, yeah, but sometimes expats make the wrong decisions, yeah. And the consequences of these wrong decisions is what leads them into the depression, yeah, makes them vulnerable to the depression. So we have a motivating factor here, which is maintaining the identity as an expat. And then we have another motivating factor, which is to kind of make oneself, or to achieve self-fulfillment, yeah, be it through family or work or whatever, yeah. We also have the motivating factor of maintaining one's identity, and then the reality of that maybe being difficult, yeah, or the reality that we made the wrong decisions, yeah. So that's one reason why expats are more vulnerable to depression. Let me introduce my first country of this week's Therapy World Tour, and that is Finland. So if you're from Finland and you're interested in one free therapy session, just go on to the website, find my email address there, and just send me a quick email describing your situation. The second reason why expats can be more vulnerable to depression also has to do with self-fulfillment. Yeah. And in general, it has to do with experiencing limitations. And just as a kind of, I shouldn't have to say this. Of course, this doesn't apply to all expats. Yeah, some people achieve self-fulfillment. Yeah, but the expat lifestyle, especially in some countries, you have to. They're set up in a certain way. the easiest way for you to find a job in that country would be to maybe work as an English teacher, for example. And that might not align with your career choice or the way you want to seek self-fulfillment. Yeah? So a lot of these, if we go back to the previous section, yeah, when we talked about wanting to move around to maintain the expat identity, yeah, a lot of these people, when they do so, they have to kind of go down a step, or have to kind of find a job that just suits them being an expat. Yeah? So they have to settle for less. Now there are some expats who do get a job abroad, or they just accept the job abroad simply because that job suits them, yeah, and that's how they begin their expat journey, and that's the right way to do it, yeah. But there are a lot of people who end up prioritizing the identity as an expat, which leads them into accepting jobs which might not suit them in terms of what they want to do in life, yeah. And they might be a little bit lost, to be honest, yeah. They might not know what they want to do, and obviously we can't all know what we want to do, yeah. But finding that sense of fulfillment, and also a lot of people can find fulfillment in other ways as well, hobbies, and also family. But for people who are expats, they tend to, when you do kind of get a job in a different country, certain countries, they end up being very kind of demanding in terms of work hours. Certain types of jobs are also very demanding in that sense. Certain countries are very expensive, other countries are very cheap. If you kind of, for example, if you're an expat and you move to Southeast Asia, there the lifestyle might be cheaper. You might be there because you want to sustain your lifestyle, but you want to do it on a kind of cheaper dime, and that means that you also kind of you have to kind of maybe work in, you have a less challenging job, yeah, but then it also leaves you kind of limited to what you can do, yeah, because then you're an expat in, for example, let's just take, you're living in Phuket, you're an English teacher, there is another expat community, but there you kind of, people come and go, you're not going to have kind of, for example, neighbors for life, yeah, you're not going to have that that social network, which is that is common for people who are non-expats, yeah. And the need for a social network can be quite underestimated, yeah. Obviously there's that social aspect, yeah, and we might think, well, yeah, I can talk to my friends online, I can also maintain connections with my family members, I can send them emails, do FaceTime chats, or talk on FaceTime, or I can play video games with them online. But the social network is also necessary for you to acclimatize to the place that you're in, yeah, or they are the ones who show you the best restaurants in town, or shows you how to get to the consulate or the embassy, or shows you also how to get to, gives you a good connection to a real estate agent that they know and trust. So social networks are so much more than just the social connection, yeah. And that is something that a lot of people miss when they choose to have that expat lifestyle, and then they move again to maintain their identity again, and then they start over. So it's a lot of starting over, building new connections, and those connections also ultimately being kind of shallow. Yeah, we can have good friends that we want to socialize with, but then we don't have the friends that are kind of practical, that have a practical use to us as well. Yeah, or we don't end up building such a strong connection to them. A lot of teachers experience this. People who go abroad teaching different languages or different subjects in international schools. Yeah, they're there for a few years. They get a connection or two to another good friend who's also a teacher, and then it ends up staying there as well. So the thought of being limited, both in terms of how you can achieve self-fulfillment and also the connections you make and how they can support you both emotionally and practically, is what can leave you vulnerable to depression as an expat. Let me introduce my second country, and I've got a map up here if you're wondering why I'm looking around. And the second country of my therapy world tour this week will be Iran. So if you're from Iran, if you don't have to be living in the country that you're from. If you're from Iran or if you're living in Iran, then go onto the website, find my email address, and send me an email and apply to a free therapy session. Good coffee. Now, the third and final way that the expat lifestyle can leave you vulnerable to depression, and obviously it isn't the final way, but this is the one I'm going to mention in this podcast, and that has to do, it's more psychological, yeah, and it has to do with kind of questioning the authenticity of the experience. Obviously, it is a very unique experience, moving to a different country, building a life there, building connections there, perhaps also moving to yet another country and doing the same thing. It's a very unique and special experience. Yeah. And the media, everything that we kind of met with, yeah, comes from having a completely different, more normal experience. Yeah. The media that we consume, very few TV series or films are about the expat experience. Very many, the majority of films, TV series, books are about life, settled life in one place, the connections that we make there. And that also kind of can leave expats open to questioning the authenticity of their experience. And in reality, there is no experience that is more authentic than another experience, yeah, than someone else's. But there are a lot of people who, and this is something that's quite common for kids of expats, they can kind of be in their international school bubble, and then they'll watch a movie about a high school in America, and everybody's from that little town. The little town, they're playing American football and whatever, you know. And that could be something that triggers these thoughts. Am I living a real life? Yeah, am I living the life of so many others? Yeah. And when we are in the country that we moved to, yeah, we're also surrounded by people who are living that seemingly authentic life. The local people. So back to this Spanish person living in Singapore. When he's walking about town, he's seeing loads of Singaporeans who, for them, are living their authentic life. They've got their aunts and uncles, they've got their grandparents, they've got their friends, they've got their next door neighbor, they've got their dog. They're doing their life. This is the life that is original to them. And that leaves the Spanish person open to questioning, well, even though I'm enjoying this life, is this real? And then he might go home and consume some media. He might see some social media posts, something else, and then it might be like, well, he might be seeing other people living their authentic lives. Some people back home in Spain, and they just be like, well, am I just this person traveling around? Is this uniqueness, can I normalize this uniqueness and make it authentic? Or is it always going to be unique? So in some sense, there's a battle between this identity, being unique, being the foreigner, and this need for authenticity, which everybody needs. So people need authenticity. People also need to feel special in some sense, but this need to feel special in terms of the expat is linked to their identity. So there's a huge inner conflict there, and it will always kind of be maintained unless you find some other way of being authentic. But I think that the lifestyle leaves you always questioning that authenticity, even though even if you try to feel authentic in some other sense. And that's just one other way that the expat lifestyle can leave you vulnerable to depression. And again, that is not to say that some expats don't accept that. They might have some sort of acceptance over, well, this is a weird life, but I love this life. I don't care about authenticity. I care about my uniqueness. I care about this unique experience that I'm in. And those people won't end up being depressed. So that was my third and final reason. And my third and final country for this week's Therapy World Tour. I picked one from Europe, one from the Middle East. Now let's do Central America. If you're from Panama, then send me an email. Go to the website, find my email address, or you can write in the comments below. That's fine as well. Just describe your current situation. Say that you want to apply for one free therapy session as part of my Therapy World Tour. And I'm going to pick out one person out of all those people who are applying, one person per country. So send me an email, give it a shot, and I might get back to you. And that's all for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I've explained to you the three reasons why the expat lifestyle can leave you vulnerable to depression. Thank you very much and have a great day.